Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Where Wendy Creates. Today we are looking at this lovely, I wouldn't say baby quilt, but definitely a toddler quilt, and we're going to be putting the binding on. So we have the binding on the first round. It's been beautifully quilted, and now we are going to be completing the binding. And how do we do the binding? Well, the first row has been put on. It's a 2.5-inch strip, folded in half. We've put it on the front side. Now we're going to simply turn it to the back side and stitch it down. We can hand stitch it, or we can do it on a sewing machine. So today we're going to be putting it on the sewing machine, turning it over and stitching it down. I'm excited. Shall we get to it? And today we are working with the Heavy Duty Singer sewing machine, and we are starting our binding right where it stopped and it started. So we've put these pins in it until we were ready to sew. And now that we're going to be removing the pins and starting the process of going ahead and completing the binding. And right now we see where we have taken the binding and we've put it inside of the other binding, and we're going to twist it around to the back side of the quilt and begin our stitching process. So we're flipping the quilt, putting it in the machine, and we're going to begin stitching the binding within a 1/4 inch, or I should say an 1/8 inch from the very end of our material. We want to hold that spot where we started and stopped. It is very, very easy to pull out, and we want to keep that smooth, and it looks like we have pulled out. So let me rework that right into the end. Tucking the end in. All right. And we're going to be bringing it right to the end, and then we'll do our corner piece here. And we're just trying to stay within 1/8 to 1/16 of the edge, ideally staying right on that sewing line so that this wraps over. It has some nice feel and some bulk in there with the body of the quilt. And before we get to the end, we're going to go ahead and take our corner, and we're going to snip off the very corner here. Take our fabric, roll it over on top. We're looking to create a perfect triangle right at the end. We're going to back it off, flip the end over, needle down, okay, and pull the bulk of the quilt so you don't have any weight torquing it or otherwise interfering. And we're going to roll this over. We can see that straight line underneath is not exactly straight everywhere, so we have to live within that. And you're simply sewing about 2 inches making sure you're holding the pieces, all threads are underneath, and you're even on your seams. And this is something that you will have to constantly work with. You can use clips. This is a great place to use clips. Paper clips will work. Also, clothesline clips will work if you don't have the fabric clips. Oops. Try and stay right on that 1/8 to 16 inch, which means real close to the outside portion. Right here where the brown is, we want to try and stay right there. And that does mean that we're only doing about 2 inches at a time and manipulating our fabric as we go. Readjusting, manipulating, folding over. But you do see how easy and quick this is. And I do say easy and quick. Slow is accurate and accurate is slow. So that's why we're only doing the 2 inches at a time. The tighter you hold it, the better the appearance is going to be at the end. And we're coming up on our second quarter, and we only did maybe 10, 12 inches of the first side, so we still have almost 3 full sides to go once we pass this side. Hopefully we can work this corner a little bit better. And here, see this seam right here? This is where we join 2 of the pieces of 2.5 inch strips to create the binding. And we're going to clip off this corner piece. Corner is the tricky point, trying to make that point. You want that point to line right up. Needle down, pivot, pull your bulk around, and start down the next side. If you have the ability on your sewing machine, you want to make sure it's in the needle down position. Every time you stop, having that needle down is going to help you control your fabric. It's going to help prevent any slippage of the fabric and work, if you will, like having a third hand keeping you in line. And I love this quilt. I love the colors. It is a toddler quilt. We do use some fashionable prints on the front side. It is going to be a gift. Many of our quilts are gifts, but if you are a quilter and you're one of the few quilters in an extended family, trust me, there's lots of gifts to give. It's also good if you can control the speed on your machine doing your binding, is when you want to stay on one of your slower speeds. You also may want to consider putting the binding on the first round on the back of the quilt instead of the front, and doing, which is the opposite of what we're doing here, which gives you more control and accuracy if you're looking at the front of the quilt, and that way you're lining up your binding absolutely perfect. It is the front of your quilt, which is the showpiece, not the back. So if you're taking notes, grab a paper, grab a pen, grab your phone, take some notes. If you're doing your binding by hand the first round, or by your domestic sewing machine, putting the binding on the back of the quilt, pulling it to the front of the quilt, which is opposite of what we have done, is a lot easier. You also want to have your needle, if your sewing machine allows, have your needle in the needle down position. I'm using a stitch length between a 2 and a 2.5. I do not ever use a 3 unless it's a very, very rare case. I like a 2, I like a 2.5. When you get to your corners, if you just bob off the corner, it makes your binding easier because you have the 2 layers, which is actually 4 layers, coming over, coming straight down, back stitch, bring this up, and you want these 2 corners to match exactly. So let's try that one more time. Right there. Okay, if you can see this right here, I'm hoping right here, this corner, you want this to be a point, and you want this corner laid over, joining exactly the line right in the split of the fabric. And this is good here, this is not good here. So you want to play with that. This piece here looks like we're going to have to cut off just a tiny little bit there, and we should be able to bring it to a little bit better of a point, because we want this being a point and this being a point at the same spot. Okay, I figured it out. So sorry. This is too bulky over here. The other place was not. So let's trim a little edge of this down, because that's way too much bulk there. And now we're going to bring down our point. This is the point we want to have on this side. We're going to fold this up. Whoopsie, what happened to the point? There we go. There we go. And again, it's easy to stick a pin in this right here to hold it, but you want a point here, and you want it joining at the point there. Oh yes, you always want batting in the binding, because you need that bulk, because nobody likes to hug a quilt, hug a blanket, and have it hollow in that. So we want to make sure we always have the batting underneath. If you cut it off too short here and then you fold it over, there's nothing under there. It's nice to have a little bit of texture, a little bit of body underneath to really hold on to it. It just gives you more comfort, gives you more professional little spot there. So needle down, stitch length, corners, batting. You see we're using 2.5 inch, oopsie, let me pull it up here a little bit for you. We're using 2.5 inch, folded over in half, and then folded over in half on our binding. A lot of people use 2 inch. 2 inch may be the expert, but the 2.5 inch works perfect. And let's go ahead and rethread the needle. Rethread the, ran out of thread. Okay, and we are just rethreading the needle and getting back to work. Needle down, pivoting and pointing the corners, going slow, about 2 inches at a time, nipping the corners, sewing within like a 1/16 of the edge. Practicing. Practice, practice, practice. What does the best sewer have? The best sewer has practice. It does not matter what machine you are sewing on. It does not matter how old you are. What matters is practice, okay? Good eyesight helps a lot. Dexterity helps a lot. But practice, my friends. A nice sewing machine is nice, but look, we're using the Singer Heavy Duty. This is a very strong, very wonderful, wonderful machine to sew on because you do not have to worry about how expensive it is. You are using a very nice machine. You can pick this up for less than $200. If you get it on sale, you should be able to catch it between $125 and $130. It normally runs for $199. So again, if you can wait for a sale, you should be able to catch it, purchase it below $150. If you're just looking in a hurry and you want to pick up the machine, you might want to try Walmart compared to the Joann, compared to whatever local fabric and craft stores that you have. And again, I was using a very expensive machine, and the head of the machine here, I torqued. It moved. And I was told, even though that was a very expensive machine, to replace the head of the machine that was then bent would be just as expensive as buying a new machine. And since then, I have been doing probably about 50% of my sewing and quilting on this, because you'll see me using the fancier machines to maybe quilt blocks, although it's not necessary. You'll see me using it for other things, but when I'm making fabric bowls, when I'm doing binding, when I'm doing a lot of fast-paced work, I like this machine. I do not mind that it's a little bit louder. I do not mind that it's not as pretty. I love the fact that I am not going to be putting out another $1,000 or so because I have done a binding, got a little too aggressive, and bent the head of the machine. That's just so sad, sad, sad. So, here we are, believe it or not, coming up together on the final couple of feet of the binding. Any other tips and tricks, please hit the comment below. Tell me how you do your binding. And of course, the proper way is to do it all by hand, my friends, not by sewing machine. That's cheating. But you know what? A little bit of cheating when you're doing a lot of quilts or you're doing a quilt for yourself, I'm okay with that. So hit that comment button below. Let me know your thoughts on how you do the binding or what videos you would like to see me come up with. We've got lots more quilts in line. So I will be doing another quilt as well as finishing up the Halloween quilt and finishing up the Mexican quilt coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I'm very, very excited about all of these videos, and I cannot wait to show you and work through these together with you. Okay, and we are so almost done with this one. And we will have the binding on another quilt, because you know a quilt is not a quilt without the binding. So no matter how many quilts that we make, we still have to do the binding on all of them. Okay. And we have met up with where we began. So let's go ahead and take this off the machine and take a closer look. All right, so my friends, we have the binding on the quilt, and I cannot wait to show you the next beautiful quilt that we do. And remember always, don't poke the bear. Ha! Have a great day, my friends. Bye!